This podcast is an expression of the personal views and opinions of the hosts and guests, and they do not represent the official stance of the podcast, its sponsors, or affiliated organizations. The podcast may cover topics such as drugs, mental illness, politics, and religion, which can be controversial or sensitive. The podcast does not support any illegal activities and advises listeners to seek help from appropriate professionals for any personal concerns related to these topics. The information provided in the podcast is for general informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for professional advice. Listeners are urged to consult with a qualified healthcare professional for any questions regarding their mental or physical health. The podcast and its creators are not responsible for any loss or harm resulting from the use or reliance on the information provided in the podcast.
Now recording.
Turn my mic up.
Let's get it on. Hey, everybody. It's the Street Stoics here for our 10th episode with your hosts. We got Nate here up in Salem. We got Jay in Florida. And I'm Mike. Today, we're just going to start recapping our first 10 episodes and kind of just see how everybody's doing through 10 episodes.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Yeah?
Down here in South Florida right now, kind of visiting some family. So the setup in the back, as you guys can probably see, if you guys are watching on video, it's a little different. This is an old room that we had here in my parents' house. So just, figured, screw it, we're going to record a podcast wherever the hell we go. So, I'm doing good, man. What's up with you guys?
Living the dream.
The first question I have for you guys, I'll just throw this to the both of you. Whoever speaks first gets it. What's your favorite episode so far?
Just because we're fresh off of that episode 9, man, that whole perspective. Yeah, that whole perspective episode, it was just, I don't know. I think I understand what the term channeling is, because I don't know, things were coming out and I was saying stuff where I was just like, this is exactly what I was thinking about, that I wanted to say, and I felt that I was able to articulate everything the way that I had thought about it. So I felt at the end of it very pleased and very content with how it all came out. I mean, with the stories you shared, Nate, and just all of that, the whole thing together, it felt like a complete episode of what we really wanted to do here. And I think we've gotten to that point now. The other episode that I loved before that one was episode 1, because now I have a sense of a weighted scale, I guess you can say, where I can say, look, just watch episode 1 and just understand that was me and us just jumping in there and just trying to record something that we had no experience in, and we just decided one day, let's go, after months, like weeks of planning, even months of planning. And now, just having gone through all of that and gotten used to it and gotten comfortable with all of this, all the jitters that I had every single time, every episode, like even this episode, I'm super comfortable now. I mean, and a lot of it, I'm gonna thank you, man. I know that you want to not take credit for a lot of things sometimes, Nate, but the little pep talk that you gave me right before we press record, man, that put me in another zone right before I started just going into my flow. But
Good.
that you trust me, I took some out of that little pep talk right before. So I appreciate you for that.
Sweet.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm glad, man.
So,
I'm glad.
Jay, you were comparing your progress from the first episode to episode 9. Uh, I know. I joined you guys episode 4, with the Rudyard Kipling uh, episode. But Nate was sending me those first 3 episodes just to give feedback, and uh, the transformation that you made from the first episode to episode 9, the last one we recorded, man, it was unbelievable. The improvement, it just you could tell you're comfortable. Uh, my question for you, or it's not really a question, I guess, but walk us through the steps that you took to make that big of a jump in your uh, comfort.
I think it's been a lot of just the day-to-day things that I do. I think it's put me into a space where I have a little bit more clarity of mind, is what I would say, where I feel now that I'm having a lot of like ideas pop up, and when these ideas pop up, I start dissecting them and I try to figure out what do I need to do to accomplish it. So as I have an idea, then I start formulating the plans to try to get to that point. So when it came to us figuring out episode 9 and what we were going to discuss, when I think it was in somewhere in episode 8, the idea came up after I think Nate mentioned perception, perspective, or something like that. And I was like, boom, right there. It's time. Me and Nate have been kind of putting a whole topics list together for some time now, adding to it. And perspective was something that I had already added to it a while back. To me, I was like, you guys, saw it's become something very important to me. And when we decided that we were going to go that route, I decided this is now my time, because I kind of I I I want this whole thing to be kind of like equal three ways thing, as far as how we handle the podcast, how we record it. Sometimes I'll take lead, sometimes Nate will take lead, and like today you're taking lead. Um, and so I planned all of that in my mind, just thinking about, okay, so I need to make sure that I state this, that I say this, that I have to, bring up this particular thing. And so it was just a lot of just going over it in my head. And I got to the point too where I was like, hey, we don't do good sometimes with trying to remember at last minute, especially if we're going to be in a pressured situation. So let's record. And then, dude, I walked around the house, cleaning dishes in my kitchen, just talking to myself. I literally recorded myself talking and played it back literally maybe about 15 minutes before we started recording, or we got on video. And that's what worked, I guess. Yeah, I did all that just to try to make sure that I got into the rhythm and to feel very comfortable with exactly what I had in my head that I wanted to get out.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Uh, just a follow up. What? How does Stoicism? How did Stoicism influence that process?
The the biggest thing, as far as a worry that I've always had, especially because I've always been I've always been not good at public speaking at all. Like shaking, like choking up in high school and college. I remember having to present things, and I was a wreck. I was comfortable with what I was saying, but the delivery, it was always because I'm focused on everybody that's watching me, and automatically assuming that they're thinking the most negative things about me. And so with Stoicism, I've come to that those turn like I understand that it's all in my head. This is only my perception. This is something that I am allowing to dictate how I feel. And so with Stoicism, I've learned that none of that really matters. Like it's just me. I'm just, and that's how I treat it. I treat it as if the same way that I may have narrated something to myself alone in private, that's the same way that I should be. And that's okay if somebody else has some sort of opinion that isn't positive. It should not mean anything to me. And that's literally how I've been taking everything. I really don't care for a lot of the opinions. I'm enjoying my time here. I'm enjoying everything that we're doing here, and I like it. And yeah, I definitely say it's a lot to do with like stoicism. Yeah,
Can
yeah.
I add a second opinion on that one? So, from my perspective, and including what you just said, Jay, is I'm thinking that Stoicism was the biggest push for you making that progress that you gained, right? Because we talked about controlling our thoughts and emotions, and part of that is controlling our focus. And from what it sounds like, the only way that you would be able to do that preparation that you did was to focus on those things. So the podcast and making it sound, and not necessarily just like audio based, but the message would be received in the way that you had intended it. Those are things that you're focusing on. So it allowed you to, as the Stoic quote says, you knew which port you were sailing to, so you had a favorable wind. And I think it was Seneca that said something about, making our own luck, because Seneca defined luck as when preparation meets opportunity. And so through Stoicism, you were like, man, I have this idea. I want to do this podcast, right? Like all those things that we talked about, and maybe we'll get into this episode or maybe a later episode. But you took all of that, and it's like, okay, I know where I want to go, right? And then you focused on it. And then now hearing that you're recording yourself and stuff, that's freaking awesome. That's one of the best ways to prepare for public speaking, teach in front of people, all of those different things. And that makes a whole lot of sense on, like how you're able to make such vast or such great progress in such a short duration of time. And I think that you saying that and people being able to hear it, whoever's listening, that could be motivating in itself. And if not motivating, it could be inspirational, because public speaking is such a common fear for us as humans, that they could be like, all right, if Jay can do it, and they can listen to us from episode 1 to 9, right? And they can hear that progress, they can, oh man, I can do it too.
Yeah.
Right?
I
think it's awesome.
I understand now a lot of the cliche, the how people would probably call it, the corny little quotes that you might come across about just putting in more effort, that things aren't always as bad as they seem, like just things are in that type of context, right? It's true. It literally is true. Like if what you want to accomplish is, whatever it is, all you have to put is continuous effort towards it. Find the time for it. I have been doing a lot of things focused on, artwork now. I would say that obviously something that we discussed on, episode 1 was my passion for art and some of the things that I've done out throughout the years and the things that I had been kind of stuck on, not actually moving and progressing in. And now I feel like that's also like I've developed or been able to hone in more on my creative spark. And so now I'm doing way more of that along with the artwork that I do for our, Instagram and all our social media stuff. Um, and I I'm loving it because now I'm realizing, oh shit, like I have been wasting a lot of the time that I could have been doing this. And I knew it. And the thing is that I knew it, right? Because it was always like, I'm done with work, go eat dinner, and then after that I was like, I'm gonna go into the room and I'm gonna start working. I was always finding some excuse to sit down because I'm comfortable, and then one day goes by, 2 days, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, 7 months, and then I'm not. It just sits there collecting dust. I'm like, so yeah. And now I'm at that point where now I'm understanding. Okay, we're making progress, and that's the part where I'm just like, okay, there it is. Like you're starting to see a little bit of the progress starting to come through, and I'm like, oh, there you go. So it's it's kind of like going to the gym, man. You just got to keep going, and then eventually you'll start seeing the results. It's not going to be right away. It's not immediate. You're going to get a few likes, a few followers, a few subscriptions, a few people listening here and there. But I mean, the numbers are going up. The numbers are going up as we go. People are um, finding interest in the things that we are posting, the things that we're talking about, and I'm it's awesome. I mean, it's there's no greater feeling than an understanding that the motive of what we're doing here is to help people, and we're seeing that people are actually enjoying that and possibly are getting helped.
Yeah. And I think that's something too that we see that all the time on our Discord community too, of people reaching out, just putting stuff on there, asking questions, and that's how you get better. You sparked a question, Jay, that I have for Nate, and you were talking about being comfortable and being uncomfortable in certain situations. Uh, I think we all can agree that Nate is the king of putting himself in uncomfortable situations to gain benefit. Uh, Nate, what what are some of the things that go through your brain as you're thinking of something like, let's just use your cold water baths or cold water showers? Why do you put yourself in those types of situations, and how do you benefit from putting yourself into those
Oof.
situations?
Man, that's a
Yeah,
deep
it is.
question.
Damn, I
That's
didn't
the
know we
whole
were going
purpose.
deep on this episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yep. Um, well, and I think I kind of almost scratched the surface in a episode or two, but anybody who knew me growing up, rather, uh, I was. I don't know how to articulate it in not a negative light, just because I'm not trying to hold that. But I was like a soft kid. You know what I mean? Like very emotional, very comfortable, uh, pushover, and all of those things. And I don't remember. Maybe it was sometime around high school. I just decided I didn't want to be that person that was always getting hurt and all those things. And so I put on this kind of rough, like, facade, right? Like this mask. And it was like very closed off, very cold. And the problem was I couldn't back it up at the time, right? Like, somebody pokes a little hard and they're going to see that mask is paper thin, you know what I mean? And as soon as I did that, like, I don't know if it's trauma response or what to call it rather, really, but, like, it turned me into a person I didn't want to be. I ended up being more of an asshole or a dick than anything else. And it was just a protective layer for myself. Like, if I could come across as a dick to everybody else, they would feel like so demoralized they wouldn't be a dick to me, or they would feel like they couldn't, And I lost quite a few friends that way. And it wasn't until maybe early 20s that I realized that I had lost some really good friends. And I was like, I gotta fix this thing. And so, rather than trying to work on myself through helping others and, protecting myself through this layer, I kind of went on this journey to find myself. And I made like a conscious effort to figure out what my weaknesses were and tackle those. And it really didn't take off until probably mid to late 20s, when I finally read the book called The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. And that book was, I don't know, it was brought up to me by a guy named Matthew Green. He was a lieutenant at the job I worked at, and he was our lead firearms instructor. And he was like, you gotta read this book. And I had just made the team. I was, like just the baby on the team. And he was like, dude, you have to read this book. It's going to make a lot of sense to you. And I didn't do it for a long time. And then when I finally read it, I was like, holy shit, I've been doing this wrong. And one of my greatest weaknesses was self-analysis, self-reflection. And, later that came into Stoicism, findings. I think I Googled, like, how to journal or something. And the first thing that pops up is Ryan Holiday's, like, journal like a Stoic. And I'm like, who's Ryan Holiday and what's a Stoic? And, like all the other stuff we've talked about in other episodes. But yeah, for a long time I had like a great fear of heights, and you just get this mindset of like, it's not going to be the thing that holds me back. Because is it the fear, or is it my mind's idea of what that thing is? So I started doing rock climbing. That was one of my first battles, I guess you would call it. Because these walls weren't very tall, but even at 15 feet, I would look down and be like, just grabbing onto the wall like with dear life. And then by the end of it, your forearms are so pumped, your arms are stuck, just clenched shut, and you have to like try to pry them open. And I just told myself, like, you can't let this thing control you. And, with the lung disease, I think internally I really wanted to be competitive. But when I was younger, a lot of things that I thought you had to be competitive in were like athletics, sports, things that I couldn't compete in. And, on that contract, I got heavily into competition shooting, and that took off. So that was a whole nother mental challenge for me. And both with being an assistant instructor and competing in front of a group of people, Jay is talking about his fear of public speaking, and I'm sure if anybody from high school listened to my podcast, they'd be like, what in the world? Because I used to get up in front of the class for, a required speech, and I would just like almost throw up in front of the whole class just because I was so nervous I couldn't talk. And forcing myself to be in those uncomfortable positions, that is what helped me realize, like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. All the stuff that your parents, your friends, people who are trying to motivate you, your coaches, all those people say, hey, like, your mind is making it worse than it is. Just try it and you'll find out. And, unfortunately, it wasn't until, my 20s that I was able to figure that out. And I think through Stoicism, controlling my focus and getting better at self-reflection and self-analysis, I just kind of took it and ran. It's like drinking the Kool-Aid. Somebody sips the Kool-Aid, as they say, and they're hooked. Man, I sipped the Kool-Aid, and then I drank that glass, grabbed the whole tub of it, and just took it all in. And, ever since then, I think maybe just because I forced myself to make it a habit, maybe. I'm not quite sure about that. That'd be something good for me to reflect on. I'm glad you asked that question. But now I do it without thinking about it, if that makes sense. And like oftentimes I'll find myself seeking like, what are these things that would make you feel uncomfortable? Okay, let's go do that. It's like the weirdest thing to ever tell yourself, hey, self, what do you not like doing? Okay, let's go do that. And so, the cold water thing is just another mental aspect. For me, even with all these physical tasks, or whatever we're calling them, it's always the mental game for me. I mean, I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, they have you fill out like a waiver, and they're like, why do you want to do this? And this gym was so well thought out. They had like 12 different options, and it's like physical exercise, self-protection, all of these different things. And I found myself like checking all of the boxes, and then I was like waiting for like the mental improvement to be on there, and it wasn't. And so I drew in a box and checked it and wrote, like improving self, like mental awareness. And the person I handed it to was the one of the owners. It's a couple that owns this gym, and she was like, oh, that's a good one. And I was like, why didn't she have it on there? She's probably like, this freaking guy, I hope he doesn't last, but it ended up being cool. But yeah, dude, it's just always trying to improve the mental aspect. That's where I think people quit. I don't want to call it failure, because failure is so important to success, but usually people quit in their mind a long time before we see them quit. You know what I mean? And so like, just because I was that person, I just promised myself I never want to be that person again. And I'm just not going to make it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Since Jay told us his favorite episode, what's your favorite episode so far?
When you asked Jay that question, I was trying to think of that stuff myself, so I'd have an answer.
There you go.
I wanted so badly to say episode 4, because, like, and everybody already knows, almost in every episode I'm quoting Rudyard Kipling's poem, If. It's pretty, it's in my veins. But, and this is going to be based off of emotion, I think I'm going to have to second Jay on this. I think it's going to be episode 9. And I don't know. I don't think it may be for the same reasons, because I'm pretty sure it's going to sound good. You know, we're better practice, we're more put together than we were before. But quite frankly, I don't care about that part. I think that episode 9 is my favorite because of the reverberations of how it affected my life after that episode. Like, I made some drastic changes. I mean, and people probably thought I was already crazy before that episode. You know, as our buddy Nolan says, this guy goes to bed at 5 o'clock and wakes up at, 5 a.m. and wakes up at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't sleep much.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But after that episode, the way it impacted me, I was just reminded of a certain time in my life, and I was like, you know what, this is garbage again. And for people that don't know, maybe people who are listening in the Discord, Mike and I started that 75 hard, and not to spoil anything, but we've already failed quite a few times, so we're going to be doing this thing for a while.
Yeah.
More than 75 days. We found that out the hard way. But since starting that, and this is funny to say because I said we already failed and we already have to start over. It's actually easier than I thought, and this is talking from a guy that failed, easier than I thought to accomplish a majority of the tasks required in that because of the mental shift that happened after episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why episode 9 is my favorite.
Yeah, that challenge, it definitely pushes you, for sure. Like,
You're right.
And I can definitely appreciate the way you put that. It's we both have failed at it already. We're both going to be doing it for a while.
Yeah.
But you also said that it's easy, and
Yeah.
there is a lot of aspects of that challenge that are easy.
Right.
But it's the whole mental preparation, and the stuff that you're already doing, the cold water baths, finding out things that I don't like to do that, so let's go do that.
Right.
All of that stuff, and if you're anybody who's listening is wanting to do a Stoic challenge, I highly recommend looking into that 75 and hard challenge. It is a true Stoic challenge. Very disciplined, and you have to be in the right mindset to be able to do it, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. Well, and then that's basically what I think the dude, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, but Andy Frisella is his name, the guy who did that. And he talks about it. He says, hey, look, this is not a physical challenge. And dude, it's physical. We all know. But it's meant to be a mental challenge. And that's why I think I'm more saying that it's easy, is because once you have that mental part down, then the physical pieces just come together. And I don't want people to think oh, these guys think that's easy and they failed, or even not that they failed, just that it's easy. And I don't want whoever created it to think it's easy, or we think it's easy, because you can look at our text. Mike and I text, and I text Mike just after 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I work out, and I'm gonna be texting Mike, I don't want to do this, and guess what? I'm still doing it, and that's why I love it, is because people think oh, working out, and it's yes, but the hardest part about working out is the mental part. And the hardest part for me isn't the working out piece, just because I've been working out for quite some time. It's the doing it every single day at 4 o'clock in the morning. Because at 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes you're tired. And since starting this challenge, I'm trying to work on just being more around for my family. And so that sometimes means staying up later than I used to. And sometimes I really don't get much sleep. And you better bet your ass I'm waking my ass up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm dragging myself out of my house because I'm filming in the garage. You can see the workout equipment. I'm coming out here at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm moving some of this shit around. It sucks, but it's awesome, man. Like midday, having accomplished, what you accomplish in 75 hard in the morning, you're like, it doesn't fucking matter. Something happens at work, cool story, bro. It doesn't matter. I already worked out at 4 in the morning. What did you do?
Yeah.
Like,
right. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, for sure.
I got something.
Okay.
Yeah, just something on something you mentioned earlier about kind of loser. I don't know if I heard the term loser, but I picked that up from the conversation. As far as trying, right? And putting in that effort to actually try something out and do it. It reminds me of it was actually a video, and I had to look it up to see who actually said it and where it was said. It actually ended up being a little excerpt from a movie, and now I remember exactly where that came from. Little Miss Sunshine. The I want to say, I think he's the uncle or the father. I don't remember. The Little Miss Sunshine is the one with Abigail Breslin. I guess that's her name.
Yes.
So the grandfather pretty much tells her, losers are people who are so afraid of not winning they don't even try. And that's what I feel that this has been, right, with the whole podcast. Because
Yeah.
even before me and you had a conversation about, hey, you're into Stoicism, so am I. There had already been conversations with someone else where I was trying to do a podcast with them, more of conversations in a more how would I say it, more under the influence, and that's actually what's going to be part of the name of it. Just conversations under the influence is what it was going to be called. Hey, maybe we might even do it eventually at some other time. But so yeah, it never happened, and that's letting me know that I was scared, I was afraid, and then obviously when I found Stoicism, it helped me get to those things, right? Those uncomfortable, put myself in those uncomfortable situations, and be able to thrive. And I completely understand now your perspective as far as putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, because now I understand that too. That we all need to understand and be open to being to uncomfortable situations. The problem that we all face is that we all want to be too comfortable, and that we always want things done in a way that it brings us some sort of comfort, and then not realizing that you're losing something out in that process. You're not gaining anything from being comfortable. If you go through these uncomfortable situations like I'm sure you have, and I understand too the whole cold water stuff, because boy, I've tried it, I've done it myself, and there are some sort of benefits off from it. Like I feel I'm more alert, more awake. It's a better start to my mornings if I ease my way into a nice, super cold shower right to the face, and then just let it all and take over, just all the water on me. And every day it's like, all right, I'm gonna do it for 30 seconds more, I'm gonna do it for another 30 seconds more. So every day I'm increasing it, so I'm gotten into like 3 minutes now where I can last, or maybe even a little bit more than that now. And yeah, things like that, like to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, there is benefits from that, man. You get to learn a whole different side of yourself, to just be like, okay, it's not that bad. it's not the way that I thought. And I think that is a lot of the issues that we all have just in general, as far as we humans, and the fact that we are afraid because we don't understand and we don't experience things, and we're afraid because we don't understand other people. And so because we don't understand other people, we have all these problems going on, this and this and that. But yeah, man, I definitely want to. I'm all aboard on that, man. About putting myself into uncomfortable situations, and then just I only feel like I am gaining something from it now. That's how I see it. If it's not something in person, as far as something that I see as a gain, at least it's some experience in my head that I now know how to navigate in life, having had that experience.
Very nice. So, what, Jay? What is your next big thing that you're for personal growth that you're going to tackle?
Ooh. Hmm. Wow, that's a good one. You caught me. You caught me off guard, and I have to think about this one real good, because something that you mentioned earlier, Nate, about self-reflection, about how a lot of people don't have that. I think I got that. I definitely got that from, again, to beat a the dead horse, from my mushroom experience, right? So it somehow allowed me to have that self-reflection, to be able to kind of think about these issues that I've always had, like what you said. You know, like I said, like I asked myself those questions, like, why am I this way? And then started forming the answers to try to figure out. And then under, the influence of, psilocybin, I'm able to pinpoint certain things as far as behavior wise, why do I react this way? And then it goes back to, oh, this is how I learned this, because unfortunately, parents, they acted in this manner. So I saw that in my normal environment as this is normal. So now it comes out, because you only know what you've learned. And if you have not been exposed to some other sort of style of anything, be it, skill wise or way of being, then you're going to be, you go to whatever's default, right? You have to create the other settings. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where all I want to do is just gain knowledge in a lot of things. I want to be able to know more things about whatever it is that benefits, me, as far as growing and being able to use it in some sort of way that helps me and can possibly help someone else. So as far as something else that I'm going to be working on, I mean, for myself right now, I feel like I'm good on the not caring about the, the criticism, the whole, my, I guess now that's the one thing that I figured out was my biggest issue: the worrying about what other people may think, or what they're saying, or what they might think about it or assume. I mean, I can't help that. So I, I I've learned to let go of that. I can't control it. Why am I gonna why do I bother with that, right? The other thing that I feel that I'm good at now is the whole perfectionist thing, right? To where I'm never comfortable with how certain things turn out. Like at this point, I mean, I go with the flow. Whatever comes out is what comes out, and it is what it is. So that's my approach on it now. Damn. I mean, I just feel right now, like right now today, you caught me at a time where I feel like I'm doing good. But I mean, there's always room for growth. I'm sure eventually I'll pinpoint something where I'll say, yeah, I need to work on that. So we'll see. I don't have an answer for you, man.
But you're thinking about it. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, definitely. I'll think about it.
yeah, for sure. If you're not looking for it, you're never going to find it, for sure. How about you, Nate?
Yeah. What's that?
What's the next big thing that you're going to tackle besides the 75 and hard challenge?
Oh man. So I'm definitely not going to try to tackle this one during the challenge. It's going to have to be after we just finish what we started and then go to start over again. For a while, I was messing with fasting. You seen me do it at work.
Yep. As I'm shoving cheese down your
going
throat.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, you gotta eat. Anyways, I'm going to attempt another 48-hour fast. And the reason is I can do it pretty easily now. However, the thing that I struggle with during the fast is what people now call being hangry, right? So you get so hungry you're angry, and I would like to have better control over my thoughts and emotions during that state. And so I have some ideas of how I'm going to try to make that happen, but I don't know until I try. And every time I fast that long, something sparks a little bit of that default aggression, and it's not the good kind of default aggression. It's the that hanger, as we call it. And so I'd like to try it one more time.
Well, now that I've had a few seconds to think about it, I think I figured out what I'm going to work on. So yeah, in the sense of physical, because I was just thinking about internally, like what I'm working on, mentally and stuff. Physically, I have already kind of been slowly, transitioning into being more active and stuff. So I think I'm gonna start kind of pushing it a little bit more to where I become more disciplined at making sure that I wake up on time. So I mentioned it here a few times. I tend to do some traveling sometimes for work. Um, and lately, man, it's been kicking my ass because I'll come back home and my sleeping pattern gets whacked out. So right before my last trip, I was waking up at like 6 in the morning, going out for a walk, getting my day started super early, being able to start work clear, level headed, no issues. I start, I go, come back, and everything. Like I'm brain fog in the morning, can't wake up on time. Um, don't get a good start in the morning, so I don't get my walk in. I don't, get my coffee early in the morning right before. Um, I don't get my. I'm not level headed. I'm just kind of. I feel like I am chasing the day to try to catch up, and it's grasping, just grasping at whatever it is that I can to try to keep focus, and it doesn't happen until maybe about 1 o'clock in the afternoon is where I'm like, ah, now that I feel normal, and I don't like that feeling. So knowing that, I'm like, I've been trying to figure out like what is it, like am I not drinking enough coffee? And it's like, no, you idiot, you haven't been sleeping good enough. You've been going to sleep at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't fall asleep for whatever reason, and you're trying to wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and it's just not happening. So I know what it is. I just, since I've been here, I've kind of more or less fixed that. I'm actually going out here. I've been able to walk, and that's the weird thing with me. Like, I just need to change my settings sometimes, and then I'm able to fix things back to how they are. So that's things I'm learning about myself where I'm like, fuck, why do I operate this way?
Yeah. Hey, so since you said that, and this is a Stoic
Here we
podcast and
go.
all, I gotta say one thing. Yeah, you know what it is, and I believe we quoted it in the previous episode, but it says something along the lines. I think we were talking about vacations, but oftentimes you don't need that change of scenery. You need to change who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what, kind of what you're working through right now. So I think that's a good
Yeah.
challenge. Uh, I've been reading. So part of 75 Hard is you got to read 10 pages a day of something nonfiction or nonfiction. It can't be audiobook, all that stuff. And one of the things that I read out of one of these books, it talks about, like how do you do it? Like how do you do those hard things? And the answer is fucking simple, and it's just do it. Like, oh, you wanna wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning? How do you do it? You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, you wanna wake up and work out? Like, wake up and work out. Like whatever that is, you just do it. And the thing is it's simple, but not easy. And oftentimes we're looking at what to do, and we're super motivated because we had that intrinsic motivation going into it, right? We're like, okay, I want to get better. We're already in that perfect mindset. We look it up, we get a simple answer, and we're like, yeah, ooh, and we're pumped. And then it comes 4 o'clock in the morning, and your ass is like, how's about 5 more minutes? How's about 10 more minutes? And then, 3 hours later, you fucking wake up and you get out of bed and you're like, do I. The gym's so far away. I really. Or, like you're trying to do some calisthenics in your living room or some shit and you're like, yeah, but my body is just not warmed up yet. Just kind of, and you find these excuses, and
Being a sucker to comfort.
until right, until you just do it, you won't understand how easy it is. And that's the easy that I'm talking about with the 75 hard, is it's fucking hard. Everybody knows what I'm talking about with that piece, but when you just do it anyways, like, then it's like, oh, and you see through the other side. And yep,
Nice.
just gotta do it.
You just got to do it.
Make yourself do it. I remember how hard it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to just do it. I think one of the big hang-ups too, and all three of us, we have families, kids, wives, all that stuff. And this is a question for both of you. As you're working on these things, how do you balance the stuff that you're working on for personal growth and be there for your families at the same time?
I've thought about this one a few times in the last couple of weeks. Um, with me, obviously, we've discussed about being present. How I'm way more present now than ever was. Um, something that I keep in my mind often when it comes to my family is I will never get this time back that I have here. So if the opportunity is there that I spend it with them to do something memorable, then I'm going to do it. I need to do it because it's not only for me, it's for them. They are also living here, having an experience. In the case of my daughters, they're dependent on me and my wife to gain knowledge and all of this stuff, information, and just the experiences of growing up and learning and picking up on all these things. That's what we're here for. So in my mind, every time that I try doing things, I always try to figure out how much time does that take away, and how do I balance it out? Because for me now, it's like I want to do all these things, and that's the thing. How I feel generally right now with this podcast and everything that I got going on, it's like I feel myself as the scale. I'm balancing everything, and I'm doing pretty good at just making sure that everything is at a good balance, because I don't want it to be where I dedicate way too much time to this and then neglect, my kids or my wife, and whatever the circumstances, situations it is. There is an understanding, in my family, that this is happening. I am doing this, and I'll make time for this. But then there are going to be times when I like we've taken days off or a week off because we went off somewhere to go, like you've gone, Mike, to go spend time with your family. I've gone somewhere to spend time with my family. um it's understandable. Like, I can't pressure you guys. Oh man, you guys aren't here on the day that we need to record. Everyone has a life, so I'm more understandable about that, for the sake of all of us. And then the fact that I'm a father, so that is a requirement on my end that I need to be there as well. So it's all a balance for me, man. I gotta constantly make sure that, okay, I have to fit in time for this, and then after that, then I can start working on all this other stuff. So there's a lot of that goes into play, especially um, when I'm home all day working, and then I get out of work, and my daughters are home and they've just been hanging out all day, and I'm like, no, we got to go out somewhere. We're gonna go to a park. We're gonna go out somewhere to eat, whatever. Just take them out, have them enjoy, and get an experience in, and then just spending time like that with family.
Yeah, so how do you balance it? I would say that that's a known weakness of mine. That's one of the things I've been pretty good about analyzing and reflecting on. Um, how do I make it work? To be honest, the podcast isn't dipping in to my family life too much, so I'm not really worried about that. Um, there is a little bit of prep, and the nights that we do record, yeah, it takes some time away. However, we've altered days, before to make things work, and like you were saying, time off and all that stuff. It helps that we all three have a close relationship and kind of empathetic mindset, and we can understand and help each other out. And I think we all have enough discipline too that if we need to take a week off, we're able to get back on the horse and put in enough effort to make up for that loss of time and do it in an efficient way. I think the idea around that question is more so like, just how do you kind of balance working on family, or at least that's how I see it, because family time isn't something that comes easy for me, which is unfortunate because in my early life that was the only thing I knew, and I think just because of the path I took, I've been away from it so long, it's almost foreign, and that is unacceptable in my mind. So now with this new job and being closer to home and not having to be away for so long, one of the things that I did in preparation for that was I started doing this time block scheduling. And people were like, oh, of course this guy does a time block schedule and it's all structured. But actually it's kind of nice because it's really flexible. It's actually the most flexible I think I've ever been. I was more rigid without it. And the beautiful thing is they go in blocks however you prefer it. And if your family thing, because that's a higher priority, was going to be here, wasn't in at all, but you need to insert it, you just take something out from that spot, put that in, and then readjust your schedule to do that. And maybe to make sense of my sleep schedule for most people is, if I'm going to do something that's for me, I am not going to take that time away from my family. I take it away from myself. And probably like a majority of you, I'm thinking, where can I take this time from? Well, I found the secret, and it's my sleep. I don't really need that much sleep, and if I'm going to, that's why I work out at 4 o'clock in the morning. If I'm going to do that, that's not something that I do hanging out with the family, except for I do an outside walk that my wife and I take the kids on in the evenings. So it's kind of family, kind of exercise at the same time for us. But, weightlifting, my kid's interested, but he's 4, so it's not going to happen yet. So I do that before anybody in the household wakes up. I read a lot before anybody wakes up. I'm currently going to school for a business degree. I do most of my schoolwork and my homework before or after, usually before people wake up. So if I'm trying to focus on my family and balance, I alter myself to be able to do that, to make sure that I can prioritize them first.
So yeah, on what you were talking about, Nate.
Yeah.
You were talking about the time that you spent with your family, with the question that you brought up earlier too, Mike. Something that I have kind of analyzed as far as the things that I want to work on with myself. One of those being my sleeping pattern and my sleeping habits, and getting my start in the day early so that I can get a good start to my day. Stuff like the artwork stuff that I do, a lot of times that's being done late at night. So I'll be done with work around 5-6 o'clock ish, and then I'm normally the one that cooks at home, so I'm prepping the whole meal, getting it all done. Everyone's probably fed and already going to bed by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then at that point I'm disappearing to my office and then just working until maybe sometimes even 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So now I'm looking at it that's time that I could be spending with my wife, and what I'm trying to do is change it where now when I wake up in the morning I'm doing these things. So when nobody else is around, I get my workout in, come home, start doing some work with artwork stuff, and then start my regular day of work. When I'm done, I probably find some time for it if I have, or if not, then whatever. Some other day I'll take turns doing it one day or the other, however I can figure it out. But I think like what we were talking about, it's important that you find that balance, because for me, that's important. Family's important. Having that time with them, building that bond, building that family. The family that you have does not stop growing just because you guys are good. Everything has been great for years. You think that now, you can just lock yourself away and just work on your own shit, and your wife spends her time somewhere else. It's not gonna work out, man. It's not good. You guys, marriages are about communication and whatever. Everyone has their own situations and whatnot. So, to me, I feel like that's important. Yeah, I want to start bringing this one to a wrap, not to make it too long as far as an episode here. We kind of wanted to make it more like a bit of a filler here, just kind of analyzing, our last couple of episodes, where we're at now, how good we feel about everything. I would like to hear your take, your perspective on things, Mike. I know that you mentioned you were listening to us as far as the episodes that we put out before you joined us. How was it for you coming in to joining us on this podcast, and then having to kind of, at that point, you saw me from episode 4. Was there any difference at that point that you noticed from the initial first episode that you joined from what you had already heard previously. And then my follow-up
There was
question
a
after that.
huge difference. Sure.
Okay, and then my follow-up
Sorry.
question would just be it's all good. My other question would be then what's your overall take on the whole process? You know, obviously from 1 to 4 to that 9.
So I could tell a difference in the first episode, from the beginning of the first episode to the when you guys finished the episode. I could hear that your comfort in just talking was already improving. And then what was your follow-up question again? I'm sorry.
So you said you felt and heard the improvement as of episode 4 when you joined. So now overall, from that point on, what's your take on everything as far as where we've all grown in this podcast and how far we have gone and we've taken it, and how comfortable do you feel as far as your own personal growth as well? I'm sorry, man. I'm just loading you up with a bunch of stuff.
That's all right. That's all right. It's I know for myself, when Nate reached out to me to join on episode 4, the improvement in the whole, just a whole, was already exponential by the third episode for you guys. And when Nate reached out to me, it was a last minute thing. I think he texted me at like 4 in the afternoon. I was working overtime that day, and I started scrambling, like getting stuff together and all that. I scripted everything, that I was going to talk about. And for me, I found that I overanalyze and overthink everything. And so for me, I've found that with the podcast and just not shooting from the hip, I prepare coming into an episode, but not worry about it, not worry about what you're going to say, and just kind of go with the flow, so for me, like, my personal growth is, what the podcast has helped me with is just stop overthinking things. It's not, you don't have to complicate it. And, with my own personal, with, the journaling, all of that stuff for me, like, I know if I'm on here and I'm telling people that they need to journal, I better damn be journaling too, and so, just with all the principles that we're talking about and everything, it's kept me honest, and it pushes me, to want to get better, and thankfully I have a family that's very supportive of it. My son, he's 14, and so he is an active person. We ran into that in our last episode with the door creaking and Nate thinking it was from his house. But right now he's locked in his room. He's making sure that the house is as quiet as possible for him to not get in my way. And my wife, she's been amazing with this. She knows that I need to take my time in order to do this. So, and Jay, you touched on this earlier, and it's the same for me. My wife knows that I'm doing this for me so I can be a better husband, and a better father for our family. And she knows that I need to do that. So, Um, but for for me, the big takeaway is just not to overcomplicate things. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just kind of go with the flow, you know. So that's been the big thing for me with the podcast.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I think
Nice.
some of the things that I've kind of already noticed as far as differences are the way we kind of come into a lot of these podcast episodes now. Um, Before it was just kind of over kind of figuring out like, oh, what is the format here, how was the template. And I think lately we've just kind of been, the shooting from the hip, right? I think you can't shoot from the hip until you kind of already learned the process before that.
Yeah.
So I think we've gone into that point where we've learned the process. We're very familiar with what a structure should be of what we want, and now we're at that point where I think we could just say like, all right, we're gonna record tonight. What's the topic? Okay, how much information do we want? What do we have within us? And then generally come up with something, and then from there it's like, all right, from there I think we can formulate something else and just shoot from the hip at that point. And we've been pretty comfortable at that. I think that's to me one of the biggest signs as far as our growth here, as far as how far we've come. And then like you said as well, not overcomplicating things. Just things don't have to be overcomplicated. We've thought about it so many times as far as like, I don't know, we want to re-record that episode, let's just re-record. I'm like, nah, we just put it out there. And that was me saying that. That was me saying, nah, it's cool, I'll live with it. I there's been so many like little minor detail errors, like I will become aware of them, I know that they're there, but I'm like, whatever, nobody else is probably gonna hone in on, oh, there was a weird cutscene there, or the text letters didn't come out right when on this part of the video. Whatever. It's little things that you learn from those mistakes, and then next time I know, okay, I have to avoid that not happening again. And yeah, I'm loving it, man. The growth has been awesome. I'm just, again, like every single episode I say, like I look forward to the next one. I've already figured out what our next episode's going to be on. I mean, we've kind of been on that kind of that tip. You brought up, family earlier, and I think after a couple of weeks now reading the Daily Dad, I think our next episode should be a little bit more on how Stoicism has been helping us raise our our kids.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that
Alrighty, I think
for sure.
I basically just hijacked the end of this podcast from you, man. But yeah, man.
No worries.
Anything else you guys gotta say there as far as the overall on this whole thing, this whole project, where we're at? I know we got other things planned, other things that eventually. Again, it's all a balance. When everything gets in place, we'll push on through the next one. Anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I uh, was glad to ask you guys a bunch of questions, and uh, I'm just glad to be a part of it too. I think Stoicism. There's a lot of benefit in I've benefited from Stoicism, uh, and I think we all three of us, we want other people to benefit from it too. So, uh, and
Definitely.
just playing along with it. So, but yeah, that's all I got.
Alrighty, that's all we all have.
Glad to have you, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, you've definitely been a real good addition to the podcast. I don't regret, don't have any doubts in the decision making that we made. To bring you on. It's awesome, man. It's with some of the things that you've brought up. I've been able to pick up on stuff where I've learned from that as well. You learn from someone else's perspective, issues that they got going on, especially when hearing the certain conversations about, your rough, past life, it just lets me go into my own internal reflections of remembering how I had to go through those, dark moments of just the negativity and feeling, certain ways. So it lets me understand that there are definitely people out there that go through very similar things as I do. I don't know whether I will ever know whether it's the exact same feelings, the exact same way, but damn, the way that you describe it, it seems like, we there's a lot of us that go through the same shit. And it's just great that a lot of us get to overcome that, man. There's so many people out there that have left us because they couldn't. And it's just unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate that some people can't get to this point, right? To be able to understand that life is hard. Life is hard, and there's challenges here, and that's just it. That's just part of life. And we have to grind through it. We have to learn from it. I understand that a lot of us have far worse situations than I may have. But damn, man, try to find a way of enjoying life any way that you can, man. Any way that you can, even if it's, mundane. It's like just taking a walk to wherever, down the street, to go to a restaurant, or just something. Make something in your life worth it, even if it's some normal thing. I mean, I'm at the point now where taking drives to like just the grocery store, I enjoy it just because it's like, oh, I'm out here having an experience. Whatever happens here, cool, whatever, man. It's just enjoy life. That's all. That's the only thing. Find your way to enjoy life, because I know that it's easier said than done. Is just say enjoy life. Just if you're going through something, man, just ask yourself those questions. Why are you going through these things? And try to figure out how to get out of them. Little by little, man. Little by little, and it's not a race. Alrighty. I think with that, I'll sign off. Amore fate. Alright, guys. Till next week.
Peace.